Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for December 11th through 17th. This week I read one book, I watched 2 shows, and I listened to 1 book. Please forgive me if I'm not completely awake or coherent for this video. I do have to film it pretty quickly because my day is pretty jam-packed. After this I have to go to a birthday party for a small child, and then after that we need to drive up island to go to my parents' place for the holiday season, and it is snowing right now, and this concerns me because we need to go over a pretty treacherous terrain to get to where we're going, and I'm just wondering if we should skip the party or not. I don't know. But I'm filming this early enough in the morning so that we can get those things done later in the day, and let's just see how that goes. The one book that I read with my eyeballs this week has a very long non-fiction title, so I'm just going to read it for you. It was called Young Bloomsbury, The Generation That Redefined Love, Freedom, and Self-Expression in 1920s England. I would classify this one as a memoir if you can have a memoir about an entire group of people. And by group of people, I do mean this book covered, I want to say, at least 30 people who used to live in a section of London called Bloomsbury and who were pretty influential when it comes to having a queer community and kind of a found family in that aspect, because a lot of them lived very close to each other. A lot of them had relationships with each other, broke up, had relationships with other people. There was a lot of bisexuality going on as well, which was great to see and great to know that actually occurred. And if I go to the dramatis persona, because yes, this book has one, I can give you an idea of some of the famous people that are in this community. And I'm probably going to butcher this name because I've never heard of this person before, but Lytton Strachey is one of the huge ones. Apparently he was a biographer and an essayist, and also is an ancestor of the person who put this book together. We also have people from the Stephen family, which does include Virginia Woolf because her maiden name was Stephen, and then she got married to a man named Leonard Woolf. Maynard Keynes is another one that I had heard the name of before, but I didn't actually know anything about, and that person was an economist who married a person who was a ballet dancer. And then there are tons more people that other people might have heard of if they're more familiar with this area and this time frame. I'm not going to lie, once I got to at least the 50% mark of this book, I did start skim reading because it got to the point where I was just like, there are too many people. I don't remember who used to do what and who used to do who, and that's not exactly what this book is. It's not just being like, these people used to be together and then this person got thrown over for this person and then this happened. It's not that kind of book, although it does mention those details just kind of for context. But there were just so many people that got to the point where I was like, I can't focus on this because there's just so much being thrown at me. So I tried to focus on the bigger picture, which is just kind of like what the historical setting looked like, what people were doing at the time, and those types of things. And for that, it was really good to see that there was this found queer community in the 1920s in England. Like, that was really good to learn about. However, I don't know if this book is really successful in making me really care or connect to any of the 30 people or so that were in this community. I said in my review of this book that the best audience for this book is folks who are familiar with one or more of these famous figures and desire to learn more about how they lived, and that's definitely how I feel about it. I didn't go into this really knowing any of these people. Like, I'd heard of some of them before, but I didn't have like a really big knowledge base of any of them. This might be a weird comparison, but it's kind of like going into a big production movie where you know all of the characters are being played by very, very famous people, but you've maybe only heard of one of them before, so you don't really care as much about the fact that so-and-so is interacting with so-and-so, and you kind of wanted more out of the plot, if that makes sense. I ended that review with, I am mostly left with a newfound appreciation for found queer families and clubs, and I'm happy to report they were alive and well in 1920s London, and that's pretty much how I feel about it. On to the shows I watched, the first one being more Ally McBeal. Again, my roommate is watching this, so I will sit down and watch it with her every once in a while, but it's not something we're watching together, so I often skip episodes and that type of thing. And a few things have definitely happened while I've been watching it. There was a very quick turnaround for a certain character death that nobody saw coming, because in episode A, it was like, oh, you have this health condition, and then in episode B, that character died. We were like, excuse me? Also, can we talk about holy hell musical guests? I did happen to be in the room when there was a sort of musical episode of this that not only had Gloria Gaynor, but Loretta Devine, and like, wow. Also, an episode far previous to this week, we did have Barry White, which is huge for the cast if you know the show. There's so many amazing singers that are featured on this show, including the woman that plays Angelica in Hamilton. She is one of the Ikettes really early on in the show, and I'm just like, wait a second, I know that face, so that was weird. Speaking of characters from Hamilton, let's just transition right into talking about House, because I finally got to the 6th season, and Lin-Manuel Miranda is in it, as well as Andre Bruger, as well as the guy that plays Pallant on Bones. That couple of episodes was just like a fever dream of like people from other things I know. And again, in this one, I have to talk about a character death in the 5th season that nobody saw coming, literally nobody saw coming. It was just like, that character was there, and then the next time he wasn't, and we were all like, but what? Also with the show, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it before, and if I haven't, I'm really sorry, but there are certain things that happen on the show quite often that make me super uncomfortable, such as the ridiculous amount of fat phobia. Basically, anytime a patient comes in who might be plus size, they're just like, yeah, it has to do with your weight, can't be anything else, and I'm just like, you would think they would learn from the times where they've been like that, and then it turns out to be something else, to go in and like treat the next person as, you know, a human who isn't just their weight, but they don't seem to learn that. Also, there is a lot of biphobia because one of the characters is openly bi, and that's probably where I started seeing that, and that's probably why I stayed in the closet for so long. Also, everything that happened leading up to the end of the 5th season, I was amazed by how they put that together, because that was some great writing, and I'm going to enjoy seeing how it continues on from there. The book I listened to this week is one of the books that was on my 12 challenge for the year. It was the 10th book that I finished for the 12 challenge, and that is The 30 Names of Night. This one is dual perspective between a character who is a trans man who hasn't come out yet, and we don't know his true name, so we don't really know his name. A couple of people dead name him without knowing that he is trans, so they don't know they're doing it, so it is dropped in every once in a while, but I don't just want to use that name because that's not his name. It's a dual perspective between that person who is in current day and this other person whose journals he finds and was an artist, and nobody really knows what happened to that artist. He happens to find these, which is a huge, big, interesting coincidence considering his mother really loved this artist, and there seems to be some connection there that you eventually figure out what it is. This one is super queer, so it definitely gets points for that, but right from the beginning it seemed to have this writing that I thought was a little bit too poetic for me to really understand everything that was going on to the full capacity, and things like that scare me, so I probably didn't enjoy this as much as I could have if I just kind of figured out how to ignore that part of my brain that tells me I'm not going to get it because I'm not smart. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy this, I did enjoy this, it just wasn't a very highly rated book in my brain. It got to the point where I was sometimes mixing up whose chapter we were in, even though there were 2 different narrators. Additionally, the audio production quality of this audiobook had a few hiccups to it. There were definitely some lines that, especially the first narrator, missed the first time they were going through and narrating, and you can tell they had to re-record certain lines because the audio quality is vastly different, and every time that happened it was really jarring, and it happened quite a few times. I did enjoy seeing this artist come into who they were and come out to people and come out to themselves and all of those types of things, and I did want to know what the mystery was and how these people were more connected and what happened to his mother, because the whole time his section is actually written pretty much in second person, so he's constantly talking to you, who we figure out is his mother, who is deceased, although we don't know immediately why so. And that was also done in such a way where it was a little bit hard to sometimes understand if he was actually having a conversation with somebody else in scene and saying you to that person, or if he was still talking to his mother. I do like second person, but it can be really hard to pull off successfully. Overall, I'm glad I read this one, but it's not going to be a favorite of mine. And while I've been recording, it has stopped snowing, so I'm a little bit less stressed about that. I want it to snow as much as it wants when I get to my parents' house, but that is many hours from now, so if it could just hold off, that would be cool. Unintentional pun. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that and many other things is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!